Hey guys, Raiden here, and today we're going to be talking about something very special and a little different from the norm. Recently, Pavice Productions, which I believe is a channel name, released a video called Fire Emblem Memories, where he got in contact with a bunch of YouTubers, such as Mangs, Blazing Knight, and some more I've never heard of, to talk about their history with the series and what got them into Fire Emblem, essentially, and their favorite memories with the game. I wasn't invited, but I'm not hurt, because that's perfectly reasonable. But I felt like it was worth sharing my story of getting into Fire Emblem, as it's quite backwards from everyone else's. My first introduction to Fire Emblem wasn't even on purpose. Back in my mid-high school years, I was very into Persona 4 and Persona 3, and the SMT series in general. I was a complete fanboy for that series, and I think I still kind of am, but as soon as I heard SMT 4, otherwise known as Shin Megami Tensei 4, was coming out for the 3DS, I knew I had to get my hands on a 3DS that instant. So as soon as I was able to afford a 3DS, I picked that up, and I noticed a deal going on. The deal was that if you bought a 3DS and also bought Shin Megami Tensei 4, and bought some weird game called Fire Emblem Awakening, you got extra eShop points, like $20 worth of eShop credit for the Nintendo store, and I was like, that sounds pretty rad. Well, Awakening looks pretty cool, I guess I'll get that too. When I got home, I decided to play Awakening first for whatever weird reason, and I popped in the game and looked on the internet first of all to see what difficulty I should play on, because the difficulty options were a little daunting at first, and everyone told me play Hard Classic. So I started my playthrough of Hard Classic. Maybe 10 hours later, I hated that game, and I was completely hell-bent on never playing it again. Now, a lot of this video is going to be on why I hated Awakening back then, to give people a good sense of my viewpoint of the series at that time. My first problem with the game was how the characters were recruited and how little each of them mattered. My first problem with the game was how characters were integrated into the story. In a lot of RPGs I had played recently, even games with a lot of characters like Suikoden, when you go to recruit someone, you actually have to do something for them, and you actually get a good chunk of what their life was like before you recruited them. Even though Suikoden has over 100 characters, I feel about 60 of them still gave more information than the Fire Emblem Awakening cast did. And when I went to go play Awakening, in comparison, the characters didn't really say that much, and if you didn't do their supports, they never really talked about anything ever again, or had any significance whatsoever, and you couldn't really go and talk to them at all unless you were actually using them or had them in your current party setup. The second thing I noticed very quickly is that I was not used to this style of game, and it was kicking my ass on Classic Hard. I had played games like XCOM Enemy Unknown on max difficulty, Tactics Ogre, and Valkyria Chronicles. Please let the fourth one that was announced be good. Just let it be good, I swear. But I had never played anything quite like Fire Emblem. So when I went for the initial playthrough, I was getting my ass completely handed to me because I didn't understand some of the mechanics that it wanted me to, which made me turn it off on maybe about the 9th or 10th mission in the game. The thing that really ruined Fire Emblem Awakening for me was the combat system. And that would have been for every combat system at the time, and I still kind of agree with this, but not enough to keep me from liking the series like it was then. But basically, imagine having come from strategy RPGs like XCOM Enemy Unknown and Tactics Ogre, where you had so many options. You could build your character so many different ways. The magic systems in Tactics Ogre were completely robust. Front mission had body part attacking, where you could blow up a certain body part to strategically keep them from hurting you with that weapon. And even XCOM had the destructibility of all these buildings. Fire Emblem has the attack button. Fire Emblem, when you remove the movement options and when you remove the weapon trading, it's just attack. It was essentially Final Fantasy Mystic Quest all over again, and it was the most boring thing and the most disheartening thing when I finally leveled up my lord and main character, and their only option was still attack. I know some of you guys are listening to this right now like, really, Xeno? Really? Is that what you... But that's how it's supposed to be. And yes, I know, that's how a lot of people liked it and why there's a lot of games out now, but to me, I think I would like to see Fire Emblem branch out more with more skill-based combat. So after this, I quickly threw away the game and enjoyed the bliss that was Bravely Default and Shin Megami Tensei 4. Fast forward 2 years later, I'd finally discovered what an emulator is, and I was getting in the mood to play Final Fantasy II, specifically the GBA port. I walked over to my computer and downloaded the ROM for Final Fantasy II for the Game Boy Advance. I boot up the game and was greeted to a very different screen than I expected. The game said Fire Emblem. Someone had uploaded an FE7 ROM instead of the Final Fantasy ROM I was looking for. So I said, oh well, I've been searching for this ROM for hours, I'll just play this instead. And I booted up the game and I was completely baffled at how much I actually loved the game. The sprite work was beautiful. And just watching Lyn crit for that very first time got me hooked because I wanted to see all the animations in the game. And before I knew it, all these characters started coming in, and the reason that these characters were joining us felt somewhat realistic. I mean, some of them less so than others, but just watching all these characters grow on each other and the reasons why they're joining our army, and they're having actual conversations between battle. And it's not just, you get this extra 5-line cutscene with Chrom because you recruited this character. No, they actually kind of play into the story, and their reasons for joining you seem so genuine at the time. And as more and more characters joined up, I really started to like the story, and before I knew it, I was done, and I was on to FE8. And before I knew that, I had bought already like 4 Fire Emblem amiibos. I know gameplay for Fire Emblem is very important to people, but that's not what hooked me, it was the characters. And I would love to see a Fire Emblem game that takes Persona amounts of dialogue, or at least any other JRPG's amount of dialogue, and throws it in there. It feels like such a waste to have so many characters and so many of them go unexplored just because they don't like having that much dialogue in there and throwing in supports instead. I'm not saying that supports are a bad way to do things, I just wish there was a bit more to them. But aside from that, I was absolutely in love with the series, and before I knew it, I had replayed Awakening and I had replayed Fates, and as you guys know, I went back and did a Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn playthrough on this channel. I just wanted to make sure you knew, with all those Ike posters in my room. I know, thank you, Soph. It's really hard to tell your sexuality with all those Ike body pillows. And destroyed every character in there, and your positive reception to that is really what made me love the game, because I realized there's so much more going on to the story than I had initially thought, and the world of Tellius was so coherent, most of the time at least, that it just completely sucked me in. And that actually leads me to my 2 favorite moments, which are right at the end of my Radiant Dawn playthrough. The first moment is actually beating the final boss of Radiant Dawn, and my reaction to that was something I haven't done for a single-player video game in a very long time. Give me your energy, Micaiah. Oh, what's this? I am so happy. Wait, what? Yes! I beat it! I beat the game! I won the game! And the second moment is actually right at the end of Radiant Dawn. Seeing that finale screen with Ike walking away, it almost made me tear up. The fact that my journey with all of these people is now over, and it really hit me emotionally somehow, and I really don't know what it is. I really wanted to see another part. It felt like something had just been like torn from me. Like I was supposed to hit the next part of Tellius, and it's just not there. Then again, Ike has been used in everything else. I wouldn't even be surprised if on the cover of SMT Switch I saw a sticker that said featuring Ike from the Fire Emblem series. Thank you for watching this video, and if you did enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, or just take a look at my other LPs. I do have Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, as well as Fire Emblem Shadows of Valentia starting very soon. I also have a bunch of other LPs like Phoenix Wright, and Tales of Berseria, and a bunch of other stuff. Just go look, I have stuff. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Right now.